Welcome, everyone, to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into, well, a truly astonishing text, the Bhagavad Gita.
Ancient and still incredibly relevant.
Absolutely. And our mission today is really to pull out the most important nuggets of wisdom from all the sources we've looked at. Historical analysis, philosophy, even how it connects today.
Basically giving you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed about the Gita. It's a big topic.
It is. So what makes it so unique? I mean, the setting itself is pretty startling, isn't it?
Oh, completely. That's what grabs you immediately. It's not some calm, serene teaching in a monastery.
Yeah.
It's this incredibly deep philosophical dialogue happening right there on a battlefield, on the brink of this massive war.
Wow. Yeah, that urgency really sets it apart.
It really does. That stark context is, I think, central to its power.
So it's this profound spiritual discussion happening amidst total chaos. The Bhagavad Gita, or just the Gita.
Which means God's song, or divine song, essentially.
Beautiful. The foundational Hindu scripture. You might also see it called Iswara Gita, or Vyasa Gita, right?
Yeah.
And always with that respectful Srimad prefix.
Exactly. And understanding its context is pretty crucial. It's actually part of the huge epic, the Mahabharata.
Right, nested within it.
Yeah, specifically chapters 23 to 40 of the Bhisma Parvan section. But, its wisdom is so potent, it's very often studied on its own.
As a standalone text.
Yeah, usually broken down into 18 chapters, 700 verses. And it's written in Sanskrit poetry, mostly a specific meter called Anushtabd Chanda.
Designed to be memorable, I suppose. Like a song.
Precisely. It lives up to the song part of its name.
Okay, so paint the scene for us. Who's talking to whom?
You've got the Pandava prince, Arjuna. He's right there on the battlefield facing this immense personal and societal conflict, the Kurukshetra war.
He's talking to his charioteer.
His charioteer and guide, who is Krishna. And Krishna isn't just any guide. He's revealed as an avatar of Vishnu, the supreme being.
But here's the thing that always fascinates me. It's not just about that specific moment, is it? It's often read metaphorically.
Oh, absolutely. Widely interpreted that way. It's seen as this timeless dialogue between the individual self, us, and the higher self, the God self within.
So Arjuna's crisis on the battlefield is really our own internal struggle.
That's a very common and powerful interpretation, yeah. His confusion, his despair, his search for meaning, it reflects our own human condition.
That really reframes it. So our deep dive today is going to try and synthesize these different angles.
Exactly. We'll bring together various perspectives from the sources to give you a hopefully comprehensive feel for this really complex and influential work. We want you to get not just what it says, but maybe why it still speaks to people so powerfully.
Okay, let's unpack that. Starting with the real foundations, how the Gita presents Krishna and his energies.
Right. The text introduces Krishna as the absolute ultimate reality. Param Satya is the term used.
The supreme truth.
Yes. He's shown as superior to everything else. He's the origin of everything and also where everything dissolves back into, both material and spiritual realms.
The image used is like pearls on a thread, isn't it?
That's the one. Everything depends on him, is held together by him. It's a powerful visual.
And then it gets into his natures, the Prakriti.
Yes, this is fascinating. The Gita describes two fundamental natures of Krishna, two kinds of Prakriti. First, there's the inferior nature, or apara Prakriti.
Okay, what does that cover?
This is basically the material world. It includes the gross elements: earth, water, fire, air, sky, or ether.
The stuff we can perceive directly.
Right, associated with the five sense objects. But crucially, it also includes the subtle elements: mind, intelligence, and even ego.
So things material science might sometimes overlook.
Exactly. The Gita explicitly includes these subtle internal aspects as part of the material or inferior nature.
Okay, so that's the inferior nature. What's the other one?
That's the superior nature, the Parashakti. And this is identified as the living entities themselves, the jivas.
Us, the individual souls.
Precisely. And here's a key point. The material world, that apara shakti, it only becomes active, dynamic because the living beings, the parashakti, interact with it. They exploit it in the language of the text.
So consciousness activates matter, in a way.
It's a good way to put it. But, and this is important, the Gita stresses that these living beings, these jivas, are ultimately controlled by the Lord. They aren't fully independent actors.
Okay. That leads into the idea of Krishna being in everything, right?
Yeah.
Immanent.
Yes, exactly. He's not just some distant creator figure. The Gita paints this picture of him being deeply woven into the very essence of existence.
How does it illustrate that?
Through some really beautiful examples. He is the taste of water, the light of the sun and moon, the sacred syllable Om in the Vedic mantras, the original fragrance of the earth, the heat and fire, the life within all beings. He's even the intelligence of the intelligent and the strength of the strong, but specifically when that strength is used without selfish desire or attachment.
So it's not just saying God exists, it's saying the very qualities of the world are expressions of the divine.
Precisely. It suggests that this single divine consciousness is the underlying reality of everything. It means that even mundane things, tasting water, seeing sunlight, become potential connection points to the divine.
That really changes how you might perceive everyday life.
It does. It fundamentally reframes the ordinary.
So pulling it together, everything we experience is this interplay between spirit, the Atman, the Parashakti, and matter, Prakriti, the Aparashakti.
Correct. And Krishna is presented as the ultimate source, the ultimate cause of both spirit and matter. It's a very holistic picture.
Okay, if Krishna is so present, so fundamental, why don't we always feel that connection? Why the confusion, the suffering?
Oh, well, that brings us right to the next big concept. The human predicament, as the Gita sees it. And the key player here is Maya.
Right, Maya, often translated as illusion.
Illusion, or perhaps better, the divine energy of the Lord that creates this perceived reality. Think of it like a veil, or maybe a kind of cosmic hypnosis.
Hypnosis. How so?
Well, it makes the temporary seem permanent. It makes us identify really strongly with our bodies, our roles, our possessions. I am this is mine, to the point where we forget our deeper eternal nature.
So it's the veil that stops us seeing things clearly.
Exactly. It prevents us from knowing Krishna, who is described as being beyond this material nature, beyond the reach of Maya.
And how does this Maya actually work on us?
The Gita explains it operates through what it calls the three gunas, or qualities. These are fundamental forces inherent in material nature.
Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas.
That's them. Sattva, which is the quality of goodness, harmony, knowledge. Rajas, the quality of passion, activity, ambition. And Tamas, the quality of ignorance, inertia, darkness.
And these aren't static.
No, they're constantly interacting, influencing everything. They govern all material activities, and according to the Gita, they give each living being a specific type of body and a particular psychological makeup.
And this is where the traditional four categories of humans come in. Brahman, Kshatriya.
Yes, traditionally linked to the predominance of certain gunas. The Brahmin, ideally more sattvic, focused on knowledge. The Kshatriya, more rajasic, inclined to action and protection. The Vaishya, a mix, focused on commerce. And the Shudra, perhaps more influenced by tamas, or service-oriented rajas, focused on labor or support.
But the Gita implies these labels aren't permanent, right? It's about the qualities.
That's a crucial point, especially in later interpretations. It's less about fixed birth categories and more about the dynamic play of these energies within everyone. Understanding which guna is currently dominant in you or in a situation becomes a tool for self-awareness.
So you can see how your thoughts and actions are being shaped and maybe change them.
Precisely. It offers a framework for understanding and potentially transcending these influences.
So it's this grip of Maya working through the gunas that makes us identify so strongly with the temporary stuff.
Exactly. I am American, this is my house, this is my body. While seemingly normal, the Gita terms this deep identification as unintelligent. Abudaya is a term used.
Unintelligent, why?
Because it locks us into a limited view. It inevitably leads to duality, pleasure and pain, honor and dishonor, happiness when we get something, sorrow when we lose it, because we're attached to things that, by their very nature, won't last.
Okay. So, based on how people respond to this reality, the Gita describes different types of individuals.
It does. It presents a spectrum. On one end, there are those who, even though liberation is possible, fail to turn towards Krishna or the divine. They're termed the duskritina.
Often translated as miscreants or the wicked, but maybe misguided is a better feel.
I think misguided captures the essence better in many cases. It describes four types. First, the muda, the grossly foolish, like beasts of burden. They work incredibly hard just for temporary results, ignoring their spiritual potential, indulging basic instincts.
Okay, who's next?
The Naradama, literally lowest among mankind. These aren't necessarily poor or uneducated. They might be socially or politically advanced, but they lack any real religious or spiritual inclination. They essentially waste the unique opportunity of human life to reconnect with the divine.
And the third type?
The Maya Parita Jnana. those whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. These can be very learned people, scholars, philosophers, maybe even scientists today. They have vast knowledge, but it's undermined by the fundamental delusion of Maya, leading them to misunderstand or even disrespect the Supreme Lord. Their intelligence is sort of trapped within the material framework.
Interesting. Knowledge isn't enough if it's veiled by Maya.
Right. And the fourth type is the asuram pavamashrita, those who take shelter of a demonic or atheistic nature. These are individuals who actively deny God's existence, or they invent their own convenient, often materialistic philosophies. Sometimes this stems from a deep-seated animosity towards the divine.
It's quite a stark categorization.
It is, and it's really important for us and for you listening to remember we're presenting these categories directly from the source material. We're not endorsing these labels, just explaining the framework the Gita itself lays out for understanding different human responses.
Got it. Impartial reporting of the text's view. So that's one side of the spectrum. What about the other side? Those who do turn towards Krishna.
Yes, the contrast is the Sukritina, the pious, the virtuous, those who perform good deeds.
Yeah.
The Gita also outlines 4 types here, based on their motivation for approaching the divine.
Okay, well.
First, the arta, the distressed. These are people who turn to God when they're suffering, seeking help, solace, relief from pain. It's a very common human experience.
Makes sense. The second.
The jinasu, the inquisitive. These are the seekers, driven by a genuine curiosity and desire to understand the ultimate truth, to know about the Supreme.
Like philosophers or spiritual explorers?
Kind of, yeah. Then third, you have the artharthi, the one who desires wealth or material gain. These individuals pray to God for prosperity, success, well-being. They acknowledge a higher power involved in their worldly pursuits.
Okay, seeking divine help for practical things. And the last one.
The jnani, the knowledgeable one, the person who already has some theoretical understanding or wisdom about the absolute truth, about Brahman, or the spiritual nature of reality.
So 4 different starting points for connecting with the divine.
Exactly. Now, the Gita makes an interesting point. It says these 4 types aren't necessarily pure devotees yet, because their approach is motivated by some personal desire relief, knowledge, wealth, or even confirming their knowledge.
They still want something for themselves.
Right. But crucially, the act of approaching Krishna, regardless of the initial motive, is considered auspicious. And, the text suggests, through continued practice, and especially through associating with pure devotees, those who serve without any personal motive, these individuals can gradually become purified and attain pure devotion themselves.
So the path can begin even with mixed motives. That's quite hopeful.
It is. It acknowledges the different ways people come to spiritual life.
Now, this leads us into the different paths, the yogas, right? How does the Gita present those?
Yes, the Gita famously outlines several paths, or yogas, for achieving self-realization and liberation. These were later synthesized and popularized, especially in the West, by figures like Swami Vivekananda. 4 main paths are usually highlighted.
Let's go through them. First one.
Karma yoga. This is the yoga of selfless action. It's about performing your duties, your work in the world, but without being attached to the results, the fruits of your actions.
Doing the work for its own sake or as an offering.
Exactly. Dedicating the action itself and its results to the divine. Mahatma Gandhi was deeply influenced by this. He called the Gita his gospel of selfless action. It was central to his entire philosophy of service and social action.
Okay, karma yoga. What's next?
Jnana yoga. This is the path of knowledge, of wisdom, of intellectual discernment. It involves deep study, reflection, and meditation to directly realize the true nature of the self Atman and its identity with the ultimate reality, Brahman.
Sounds intense.
It's often seen as a more intellectual path, perhaps steeper or more challenging for some, favored by those with a strong philosophical inclination.
Right.
Third path.
Raja Yoga. This is the path of meditation and mental control, often associated with Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It involves disciplines like concentration, sense withdrawal, and deep meditation, dhyana, samadhi, to still the mind and perceive the true self directly.
Is it always seen as separate?
Sometimes it's presented as its own distinct path. Other times its techniques are seen as integral components of the other yogas, especially jnana and bhakti. It provides the practical tools for mind management.
Okay. And the final one, often highlighted.
Bhakti Yoga, the yoga of loving devotion. This path emphasizes developing a deep, personal, loving relationship with the divine, specifically with Krishna in the context of the Gita.
How does that work?
It involves practices like chanting God's names, hearing and telling stories about Him, worship, prayer, and cultivating feelings of surrender, trust, service, and adoration. In many interpretations of the Gita, bhakti is presented as the most direct, the easiest, and ultimately the highest path to salvation in this age.
Easier, maybe, because it engages the heart and emotions directly.
Perhaps. It focuses on love and surrender rather than just intellectual effort or detached action.
So the Gita suggests that by following these paths, especially by performing pious actions without attachment, people can get free from those delusions we talked about.
Yes. The text says that those who consistently perform virtuous deeds, punya karma, and manage to eradicate sinful actions, papa, can become free from the delusion of the dualities like desire and hatred, pleasure and pain, which arise from ignorance.
And that freedom allows for.
It enables them to engage in devotional service, bhakti, to Krishna with firm determination. And again, the text emphasizes that this whole process of purification and transformation is greatly helped by the association of pure devotees, sadhu sangha.
Community and guidance are important.
Very much so. And going back to those 4 types of pious people who approach Krishna.
The distressed, the inquisitive, the wealth seeker, the knowledgeable.
Right. The Gita makes a specific point about the jnani, the knowledgeable one. It says that among these 4, the jnani, who is also engaged in pure devotional service, bhakti, is considered the very best.
Why is that?
Because, Krishna says, I'm very dear to him, and he is dear to me. There's a special intimacy. It suggests that true realized knowledge naturally culminates in loving devotion, and that devotion informed by knowledge is particularly cherished by the divine. It's a synthesis of head and heart.
That's a powerful idea, knowledge and love reaching their peak together.
It really is. It shows the integrated nature of the path presented in the Gita.
So, looking back, how has this text, with all its complexity, endured? What's its legacy?
Well, a huge part of its enduring power is precisely that synthesis we just touched upon. The Gita manages to weave together different threads of classical Indian thought elements of Vedic ritual and duty, dharma, insights from Samkhya philosophy about matter and spirit, yoga practices for self-discipline, and the powerful current of bhakti, or loving devotion.
It tries to harmonize different approaches.
Exactly. It doesn't necessarily reject other paths, but often seeks to integrate them, frequently presenting bhakti as the culmination or the most effective means. This inclusiveness has given it broad appeal.
And its popularity seems to have surged in more modern times, too.
Definitely, particularly from the late 19th century onwards during the Hindu Renaissance. And its influence in the West really took off from the 18th century with early translations by figures like Charles Wilkins. It captured the imagination of thinkers like Emerson and Thoreau.
And that recent UNESCO recognition you mentioned.
Yes, being added to the Memory of the World Register in April 2025. That's a major acknowledgement of its global cultural significance. It's not just a religious text for Hindus, it's seen as part of world heritage.
Now, one area where interpretations really diverge is this concept of svadharma, one's duty and its link to caste. How does that play out?
It's a major point of discussion, and frankly contention. In the Gita itself, Krishna explicitly tells Arjuna, the warrior prince, to fight. Why? Because it's his svadharma as a kshatriya, a member of the warrior class. That's his nature, his function in society.
So a duty based on one's innate qualities and social role, as traditionally understood.
That's the direct context. However, many modern and neo-Hindu thinkers have offered more universal interpretations. Well, people like the medieval Saint Jnaneshwar and later Swami Vivekananda really broadened the concept. They interpreted svadharma less as rigid, birth-based caste duty, and more as the duty that arises from one's own innate nature, skills, and particular situation in life, whatever your profession or role might be. They emphasized an egalitarian message potentially latent in the text.
Finding your own unique way to contribute.
Something like that. Gandhi also had his own take, connecting svadharma to his idea of swadeshi, meaning your primary duty is to serve those immediately around you, those nearest to you by birth and circumstance. Focus locally.
But these interpretations aren't universally accepted, are they? There's criticism, too.
Oh, absolutely. And it's crucial we acknowledge that. Figures like Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, a major social reformer and architect of India's constitution, were highly critical. He, along with historians like D.D. Kosambi, viewed the Gita as fundamentally upholding the hierarchical caste system, Varna, and justifying the privileges and duties associated with it, particularly the superiority of the higher Varnas.
Because Krishna himself says he created the 4 Varnas.
Yes, that verse, 4.13, is often cited. The fourfold caste has been created by me according to the differentiation of guna and karma. How you interpret that line, whether it refers to innate qualities or fixed social strata, is key to the debate. So you see, it's very complex. Multiple, often conflicting interpretations exist side by side.
We're just presenting the different perspectives found in the sources.
Exactly. No endorsement, just outlining the landscape of interpretation.
Another huge area of debate is, unsurprisingly, the Gita and war. I mean, the whole thing is set on a battlefield.
Right, it's unavoidable. How do you reconcile profound spiritual teachings with a call to arms?
One common modern approach is allegory, isn't it?
Yes, very popular, especially in modern spiritual circles. Thinkers like Eknath Easwaran strongly promoted the view that the Kurukshetra battlefield is primarily an allegory.
An allegory for what?
For the battle within, the constant struggle we all face inside our own minds and hearts, the fight between our lower impulses and higher aspirations, between ignorance and self-knowledge, good and evil. It's about achieving self-mastery.
A psychological battlefield.
Precisely. But that's not the only interpretation. Others take the call to fight more literally, but within a specific context.
Like the idea of a just war.
Exactly. Some scholars, like Stephen Rosen, argue it lays out principles for righteous warfare. And significantly, during India's struggle for independence, leaders like Bal Gangadhar Tilak drew heavily on the Gita.
How did Tilak use it?
He interpreted it as justifying, even mandating active resistance, including violence necessary against oppression, in that case, British colonial rule. He saw it as a call to duty to fight for righteousness, even if it meant killing.
So a defense of political violence in certain circumstances.
That was his reading, yes, which shows the text's ambiguity on violence versus nonviolence.
It seems incredibly ambiguous.
It really is. Christopher Isherwood, who helped translate it, argued it doesn't condone evil, but rather teaches acting decisively without attachment to the results, even in the midst of terrible conflict. Do your duty, regardless of personal consequence.
But Ambedkar, whom we mentioned earlier,
he found its justification of violence deeply problematic, calling it unheard of in a religious text, contrasting it sharply with Buddhist pacifism. Yet, on the other completely different side, you have American transcendentalists like Emerson and Whitman, who were deeply inspired by the Gita, but saw it almost purely allegorically, focusing on its sublime philosophy.
And the ultimate paradox, Gandhi and Godse.
It's chilling, isn't it? Mahatma Gandhi, the icon of nonviolence, ahimsa, repeatedly said the Gita was his primary source of strength and inspiration for his pacifist commitment.
He read it allegorically, presumably, seeing the violence as internal struggle.
Largely, yes. Yet, Nathuram Godse, the man who assassinated Gandhi, also cited the Bhagavad Gita during his trial, claiming it inspired his actions, seeing it as a necessary righteous act of eliminating someone he considered harmful to Hindu interests.
Wow. The same text inspiring both the ultimate pacifist and his killer.
It starkly highlights the profound ambiguity and the capacity for the text to be interpreted in radically different, even opposing ways, depending on the reader's lens and motivations.
It really makes you think about interpretation itself. Okay, shifting gears slightly, what about more recent, maybe unexpected applications, like in psychology?
Yes, this is quite fascinating. There's a growing body of work, particularly from Indian psychiatrists and psychologists, who are looking at the Gita through a therapeutic lens.
How does that work, Krishna as a therapist?
Kind of, yeah. They see the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna as mirroring a cognitive therapy session. Arjuna presents with classic symptoms of anxiety, despair, confusion, moral paralysis, what we might today call an acute stress reaction or adjustment disorder.
Facing an overwhelming situation.
Exactly. And Krishna, in this reading, acts like a therapist. He doesn't just give orders, he listens, he validates Arjuna's feelings, but then he systematically helps Arjuna reframe his thinking.
Using the Gita's concepts.
Precisely. Concepts like understanding the true nature of the self, Atman, the impermanence of the material world, the importance of performing one's duty without attachment, Karma Yoga, cultivating knowledge, Jnana Yoga, and finding solace in devotion, Bhakti Yoga. These are seen as powerful tools for cognitive restructuring.
Helping Arjuna change his perspective and find the strength to act.
Yes. It's about moving from a state of emotional overwhelm and cognitive distortion to clarity, purpose, and mental equilibrium. It's a really interesting modern application of ancient wisdom to mental health challenges.
That adds another whole layer to its relevance.
That certainly does.
Okay, so as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, it's just incredibly clear how layered and, well, alive the Bhagavad Gita is.
Absolutely. From its dramatic origins and core teachings on duty, reality, the self, devotion, all the way to these diverse, sometimes conflicting modern interpretations and applications.
It truly synthesizes so much, yet remains open to so much interpretation.
Its enduring impact across centuries and cultures is undeniable.
So, the Gita is set in this moment of intense crisis, Arjuna's breakdown on the battlefield. And its core message seems to be that liberation, or maybe just finding your way through, doesn't come from running away from action or crisis.
No, quite the opposite. It comes from understanding. Understanding the nature of action itself, understanding who you truly are, your connection to the divine.
And then acting.
Yes, acting with purpose, with skill, but with what the text calls an inner renunciation, letting go of that desperate attachment to how things turn out. Acting from duty and devotion rather than fear or desire for reward.
Which leads us, and you listening, with something to maybe chew on, what does that idea of acting with inner detachment mean for your own daily battles? You know, the struggles and decisions where the real battlefield might just be inside your own head. How might these ancient ideas offer guidance right now?